At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rocks were split open. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. After his resurrection, they came out of the tombs and entered the holy city and appeared to many. The story retold by Peter. When Jesus breathed his last, it seemed the Father could no longer remain silent. The ground beneath Jerusalem began to shake as the reality of sin, now vanquished, spread throughout the earth. I remember I was still hiding and scared when nature's uproar brought the city's buzz to a standstill. And from my safe place, I looked out and I heard the screams of the onlookers returning for security inside Jerusalem's walls. And over time, as the tremors increased, I fell to my hands and knees because I was no longer able to stand. Perhaps that was the point, getting back to our normal and balanced life was hardly the reason the Father sent us his Son to die. So when the walls of my room stopped swaying, I relaxed and I reflected. No, even our thick city walls could not keep the Father's desire to wake us up to the new day that Jesus has inaugurated. This quake, I believe, was a sign from heaven that was pointing us to see the truth. Yeah, God harnessed his world to give voice to the meaning of his Son's death. You see, during the Master's ministry, many signs from heaven offered skeptics evidence that he was indeed the Son of God. I remember a withered hand restored, a dead man awakened, a dangerous storm called. It was like calmed down, like he called out to it and it calmed. A paralytic even walking, and now this earthquake, and still the Father was not finished? 2 more signs soon came after this that provided, and I would say even proclaimed, the divine purposes behind Jesus' death. So coinciding with the earth shaking, the 6-inch thick floor-to-ceiling temple curtain was ripped from top to bottom as if it were just a mere t-shirt almost. For those of you unfamiliar with our Jewish temple, this curtain separated the rest of the temple from the inner sanctum called the Holy of Holies, and no human could enter the sacred space. I would even say even the high priest, except once a year on the Day of Atonement. The curtain for a long time symbolized God's holiness and reminded our people that though a distant connection to God was actually very real and possible, close contact was not. The message of this miracle was really clear to us Jews, and the implications were staggering. This new sacrifice made God's mercy and presence intimately available to us. That barrier that I just talked about was no longer needed. As one of my brothers later wrote, we could now draw near with confidence to the throne of grace that we might receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. How wonderful, I thought. But for our religious leaders, I don't think they thought so, because our limited access to God was actually kind of part of their job security. But our God was not finished, and there was a third miracle, a third sign that was perhaps the greatest and most incredible of them all. The severe tremors had cracked so many tombstones, and bodies of saints, long buried, came forth from under these broken gravestones. Alive and restored, they walked the streets of Jerusalem. Skeptics hear this, but many witnesses saw these living saints. The impact of our Master's victory went backward as well as forward, because it split time itself along with the stone of the tombs. I think if there was ever a sign of divine confirmation, it was this. It was here. Death was conquered by the author of life. The whole picture finally took shape. There had been 3 clear signposts before Christ died and hidden from public viewing that revealed to us disciples Calvary's divine purpose, which is the Lord's Supper, the Gethsemane prayer, and Jesus' cry of forsakenness. And now, just after Christ's death, these 3 miracles provided 3 more signposts. And together, they all form undeniable evidence that what happened to my Master on Golgotha was no accident. Rather, his death released our Father's greatest and best blessings. A prayer for the heart. Lord Jesus, when you breathed your last, the earth could remain silent no longer. In solidarity with her Maker, she cried out. Those who rose up from their graves bore visible and verbal witness of your victory over death. Your plan now is to make your ongoing victory visible and verbal by sending people like me into a watching world. In the midst of life's ongoing earthquakes of change and grief, may we be made by you into signs that will persuade even the skeptics. Lord, I believe that I too, with all my imperfections, can be a visible witness that you are the hope of the world. Jesus, help my unbelief.